Welcome in, and welcome back to another edition of Skyy Explains the Seasonal Activity. If you don't already know by now, we've done this several times. If you are a veteran player, you know how this goes. So again, this is more so for returning players and new lights. But what we're going to go through today is I wouldn't say deep dive, but we're going to do our best to explain it as clear as possible, the mechanics of the seasonal activity called Savathun Spire. Savathun Spire is a 3 guarding activity where you have to fight through different rooms in order to get to the final boss stage, kill the boss, and then end up with the loot as well as the seasonal materials that we'll be gaining throughout season 22. That said, it does come with a few twists and turns that may not be perfectly clear to someone who may not be familiar with the game or just hasn't played in a while. So what we're going to do is talk about those stages and some of what I used to get through it. For those of you who were around during Season of the Plunder, this seasonal activity gives a lot of the same vibes, where you have to go into multiple different rooms and the rotating effects depend on the RNG that you have for that time that you're entering into that activity. That in mind, it always starts off the same. Once you enter into the mission, you will be asked to start the hive ritual and begin the breach of the spire. This part initially is pretty straightforward. There are 2 different types of activities that I ran into this first room, so we're going to talk about those 2 separately. But the initial activity that I ran into was having to quickly destroy a mass of trash level ads as well as a hive guardian that entered into the building. I did this a number of times and I got different hive guardians to start off each time, so I don't think there's a rhyme or reason to it, but just know you're going to have to start off by killing one of the hive guardians, whichever one appears to you and your fire team. Once you have done that, you will now be given a subtask. The subtask I found differs from time to time that you enter into activity. Sometimes it's the solar task, sometimes it's the arc task, but essentially what you're trying to do is get the item that you need at the moment. If it's the solar crystal, you have to take the solar crystal, which does burn damage to you and can kill you, and you have to deposit that. For arc, very similar, you take the arc charge and then you go and charge up the other crystals in the room, and so on and so forth. While this is happening, you will still be getting bum rushed by ads, so it's really important that your team has a setup that's really configured for ad clear. Since I was on Warlock, I was using my Volatile build on my Void Warlock, as well as my Fallen Sunstar build that I have on my Arc Warlock. Whatever kit that you're bringing into the activity, as long as you're having the ability to kill the ads as well as kill the Hive Guardians in the room as quickly as possible, you'll get the task done. As of now, I don't think we know if this first entry point is going to change at all in upcoming weeks. Again, we have seen that in previous models from Bungie, that there is a different enemy set, that there's a different boss, but I have a pretty high confidence level that the core mechanics are going to stay the same. Kill the Hive Guardian, get your next subtask that you have to complete, Solar, Arc, Void, or whatever, kill ads, complete the task, move on to the next room. This next bit is pretty straightforward. It's called Ascend the Spire. Whether we wanted it or not, we found ourselves in a war with the Cabal and another jump puzzle. We all know Bungie loves a good jump puzzle, so it's pretty straightforward. Find the different ways that you can platform whichever character you're on and get to the top of the spire. Keep in mind that similar to other seasonal activities, there are secret chests and additional loots and buffs that you can get throughout this part of the encounter. I do not know where all of them are yet. I will do a follow-up video, or we'll just direct people to someone who already has a video out there, but keep in mind, if that's what you want in terms of getting additional loot, it is accessible for you. Just know it's not necessary to complete this activity. It's just an add-on if you like it and you like additional buffs as well as additional loot that you can get while you're inside the activity. At the top of this spire, you will activate your hive powers once again, and then you will go into another room where you need to defeat hive guardians. One quick note to keep inside your mind is that this is a timed section. I do believe Bungie gives you enough time, at least currently. You know, with each seasonal activity, we do eventually get a legend mode that is significantly harder, so that may come into play later down the road, but it isn't timed activity. So as much as you may want to use this to maybe test out a new build or test out a new weapon, just make sure that you are still watching the clock and getting the activity done. Similar to the first room that we entered into, 2, it's a very similar concept. You need to be able to find the Hive Guardian as well as the mini bosses in the room, kill the mini boss, and then it's going to activate the subtasks that you have to do for each room. For Solar, after defeating the Hive Guardian, stand on the designated plate that will be highlighted in your HUD and quickly kill all the enemies that spawn while you're on the plate. Once you've killed all the enemies and the plate has finished, you will then be gifted a scythe, the same one from Season of the Haunted, and you'll be able to use that then to clear out the room and get ready for the next plate. You will do this a total of 3 times in order to clear out the room. As a safety precaution, please keep in mind that as you're completing the activity, the ball of energy in the center of the room will reflect the elemental type in the form of damage directly to you as you are progressing the activity. So for Solar, you'll begin to get burns, arc, electrocuted, void, you'll begin to be sucked into the vortex. As you're completing these activities, it's best to stick towards the back half of the arena and stick behind a pillar or another big barrier so that you're not impacted by these effects. If you get hit by any of these elemental effects, you will receive a significant amount of damage, especially as you get to your second and third plate. So just keep that in mind. The structure for the arc room is very similar and straightforward, so that's not too much of a bother. The real trickiness comes in with the void room. The void room has 2 main hiccups that are probably going to get a bunch of fire teams in trouble. One is that the central orb has a lot of suction force. If you get anywhere near the elemental orb in the middle, you're more than likely going to get sucked in by the force and die. So sticking to the outer edges of the arena is your best bet. The second aspect is that if you don't actually destroy the crystals fast enough, in my playtime experience, I don't know that this is the main mechanic, but consistently whenever we got the void room, it seemed like the suction force from the void orb actually got stronger. It might be a little bit of copium and all in my head when I say that, but that is what it felt like when we were inside the game. Again, Bungie can confirm or deny that this is actually a mechanic, but in the meantime, it's still safe to stay on the outer rims of the arena and just to make sure that you're within the timer, completing the activity as fast as possible. After completing each activity, whichever one you're on, and killing all the enemies, you will then head to the back of the room to the portal to go to the next jumping puzzle. Immediately after coming out of the portal, you'll be faced with 4 doors and 1 set of symbols in the middle of the room. The idea here, and Bungie calls it a puzzle, you get a triumph for it. It's not really much of a puzzle, but also acknowledging that maybe folks don't understand it at first, but you take the 3 symbols in the middle and then you match it to the corresponding door. Now in the future, there may be additional secrets or loot chests or things that happen in future weeks of content that expand these doors, but the general premise to just complete the activity, match the symbols in the middle with one of the 4 doors. From there, follow the pathway, which is pretty straightforward, all the way to the next set of doors, where again, you will match the door with the symbols that you had in the first room and then proceed forward. You follow this pattern all the way to the top of the spire. Once at the top of the spire, you will then have an opportunity to put down a rally flag and get ready for the final encounter of this activity. In true Bungie style, you will get a different experience every time you boot into the activity. So far, I played it a number of times prior to making this film and I got a number of different experiences, but the one thing that remained the same, at least for this first week of the new season, season 22, I've only been able to get into either of the 2 doors, the middle door or the right door. Again, this door is chosen for you based on RNG. The door on the far left that has 2 green lanterns on it has actually never shown up in any of the runs I've done. Again, maybe this is something that opens up in future weeks, or it's tied to a secret code or some other way to access the door, but currently I've only been able to fight the bosses that are in the middle door room as well as the right side room. Whichever door you get, you will find a different experience, but again, it's going to be a similar structure to what you have done thus far in the activity. Use your hive magic, go through the selected door, and then prepare for the final fight. Here are the mechanics for the 2 different types of fights that I've encountered so far in this activity. For the Eliminate the Spire Wardens fight, it's very simple. At random, one of the 3 Hive Guardian types will be selected to have their shield unlocked. Once their shield is unlocked at the start of the activity, kill it as fast as you can. They're still relatively squishy, even though we are still grinding our level for the start of the season, so it should be pretty accessible for anyone. Again, based on what type of Hive Guardian gets unlocked, then you will have to complete the corresponding elemental challenge. Again, if you all remember this from room number 1. So again, if it's the Arc Hive Guardian, you will have to do the Arc Crystals. If it's the Solar Guardian, Solar, Void, Void. It's pretty straightforward in that regard, but if you're doing this in a fire team, make sure that you have people split up to different tasks. Someone that's going around taking care of the crystals, someone that's making sure ad clear is under control, as well as someone who is ready to take care of the ogres, since there are ogres that spawn and they do hit hard. Once you've completed the first task and eliminated the first guardian, again, whichever guardian RNG picks for you that round, you then will see that the other 2 Hive Guardians are unlocked. At this point, it's pretty much a free-for-all. Play your life, use cover, do whatever you need to stay alive, but again, there's going to be Boomer Knights, there's going to be Trash Ads, there's going to be Ogres, there's going to be the other 2 Hive Guardians. Just literally let loose on whatever you have available in your arsenal to be able to take everything out as fast as possible. Again, I would highly recommend that folks come in there with a strong build. If folks would like me to go into more detail in a future video about builds, definitely let me know. But again, come in with a strong build, make sure you have something that's going to take care of ads. Again, rockets, 2 rockets plus 1 person who has galley, still really great damage. Machine guns, really great damage. Again, they're not super high health at this level. Again, we always anticipate that the seasonal activity will have a legend version a couple weeks into the season, so we're not there yet. But right now, it's still pretty easy to defeat these guardians as long as you're staying on your toes, and even if you get to low health, play cover. Once you do that, you collect your loot and you're done. For the other variation that I found in this activity thus far as recording of this video is defeating Once Iris. If you've been playing Destiny for any amount of time, we fought a similar, if not maybe the exact same enemy type several times. This enemy makes clones of himself. You defeat the clones to help do additional damage, and then once you've defeated all the clones, you then do damage to the main body. So that's your main job in this room, is going around the room, checking your corners, obviously taking care of the ogres that spawn as well, because they are definitely still going to hit, and they spawn in every encounter. And make sure that you're taking out Once Iris's clones. Once you've taken out the clones, you'll then be able to do damage to the boss. Again, after you've hit that first half of the boss's health, he will gain a shield and become immune. All you have to do is go to the designated plate that will be glowing and available on your HUD, charge up the plate, defeat his clones, and then proceed to do damage to him again. After all is said and done, pick up your loot and you are done. So that is a walkthrough of the main mechanics of the Savathun Spire seasonal activity in season 22, Season of the Witch. As I've done with previous videos, I definitely always make sure to do multiple runs, many runs before I put the video together, just to make sure I have as accurate information as possible. But also, if I do get something wrong, feel free to not only point it out in the comments so other folks know, I'll pin a comment if you do have a correction to something I said wrong, as well as in the forthcoming weeks, if there are additional information, as well as what happens with that third door that we talked about earlier, I will definitely make a follow-up video so folks have that information at hand. Again, I want as many people to enjoy the seasonal activity because the seasonal activities are always big parts of the season, and I want to be able to put out these videos as accurately and as fast, to be transparent, as possible. But again, I do make mistakes, I'm human, and so if you do see an error, if you do see correction, please feel free to comment below. As always, a like, comment, and subscribe will be greatly appreciated. Come follow on the channel, come join the community Discord, and yeah, let's continue to have a good time in this new season of content together. And as always, looking forward to seeing y'all Starside. Peace.